Recording
so it says,
in progress.
Vayita Eshel Be'er that Hashem, that Avram Avinu planted an Eshel in Be'er Shava, and Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Havaya Kel Olam, and he called over there out in the name of Hashem Kel Olam. And Eshel, he's soon going to explain what does this Eshel mean. In general, Eshel is referring to over there a place of Hachnosas Orchim. But how and what does it exactly mean will soon bring the Perush. The Shabbos Parshas Vayera Tofresh Ches Tzadik V'Chamishim Shana, that in a Maimer that the Frierdiker Rebbe said 50 years before the Rebbe said his Maimer in 1938, or at the end of 1937, he said that Tzarech L'Havna Kesher Ben Beza and Yonah. We need to understand the connection between the two things, that it says first, Vayita Eshel Be'er Shava, and then Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya Kel Olam. Seemingly, Hachnosas Orchim is one thing, and calling out Hashem's name is a separate thing. Through planting this Eshel, through that he called out over there in the name of Havaya Kel Olam. So maybe Al Zemasham and Azal, and therefore the Frierdiker Rebbe brings what Chazal say, Al Tikra Vayikra Ela Vayakri. Do not read it that he called. In other words, it was Avram Avinu's own private thing that he called out to Hashem. It's only him calling out to Hashem. What does him making an Eshel or planting an Eshel have to do with him calling out to Hashem? Rather, read it as Vayakri, meaning he made another call. This teaches us that Avram Avinu made well known and made call out Hashem's name to every passerby, and this is going to be the connection to Eshel. After people, his guests, his passerbys, ate and drank from Avram Avinu's Hachnosas Orchim, Amdu Levarcha, they stood up to thank Avram Avinu for the food, for the drink, for the hospitality. Amar Lahem, so Avram Avinu told his guests, did you eat my food? Nothing is mine. You ate of the food that belongs to the God of the world, because everything belongs to Hashem. So the food is not my food you're eating Hashem's food. Therefore, being that that's the case, you're not eating my food, you're eating Hashem's food. Therefore, hoidu v'shabchu baruchu, thank and praise and bench, l'misha amar v'hoya olam, to the one that said, and the world was made. In other words, to the creator of the world. So now, based on this explanation, that al tikra vayikra el vayakri, that the method by which Avram Avinu got everybody to call out in Hashem's name is through his hospitality, through his achnosas orchim. So now it's understood the beginning, the connection, the beginning of the pasuk with the end of the pasuk. That's the connection between both matters. According that through the Eshel, which it's explained in Rashi and Chazal that it's an inn, that he established an inn to be machnas orchim. Especially according to Rosh Tevis, that's brought down the Maimer, that it's Eshel, Rosh Tevis, Achila, Shtia, Levi. That the word Eshel is an acronym of Rosh Tevis for eating, drinking, and escorting. This is what he did with his guests. He gave them to eat, he gave them to drink, and he escorted them. There's another gears also that it's not, the Lamed is Lina, staying overnight, being able to sleep over there overnight. So being that Eshel represents Avram Avinu's hospitality, so through Vayita Eshel V'Shava, through Avram Avinu being hospitable, being machnas oidach, through that he made that Hashem's name should be called out in every passerby. That's what it means that he called over there in the name of Hashem, Kel Olam. So that is the point that the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer, the connection between the first part of the pasuk and the second part of the pasuk. So now the Rebbe is going to ask on this. Yeah, we need still to understand Commission Medayik Maimer, like also the Maimer the Frierdiker Rebbe asks. Making godliness well known through Avram Avinu's hospitality. It was through explaining to his guests. First of all, he told them, "You're eating Hashem's food," and also he said, and the idea that who spoke and the world came into existence. Meaning, he explained to his guests the general idea of creation, which creation is only something that the Creator can do. There's no one else that can create the world. So these were the ideas and the concepts that Avram Avinu shared with his guests, and therefore brought them to call out in Hashem's name. Based on that, so the question that the Rebbe is going to raise over here is, these are not things that have to do with Hashem's name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why does it say called out over there in the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei? In the creation of the world, it says the name Elokim. In the beginning, Elokim created. It should have said that he called over there in the name Elokim. And why does he mention Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei? Because seemingly what they would relate to and what he explained to them didn't have anything to do with Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. If you would have told me some other reason why they called out in Hashem's name, so maybe that other reason has to do with the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that's why it says Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya. But that's not what the Chazal say. The Chazal say that he said, you should know that you didn't eat my food, you ate Hashem's food. And he explained to them about the Eibishter creating the world. All of that, the world's interaction with Hashem, and because of that you ate from Hashem's food, and therefore you have to thank Hashem, is the name Elokim, not the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is higher than the world. Therefore, it should have said, instead of Vayita Eshel B'Veir Shava Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya Kei Lo'olam, it should have said Vayikra Sham B'Shem Elokim Kei Lo'olam. And then the Rebbe goes on, not only from that perspective, but also there is, even from the words prior to that, not just what the Medrash says, but the actual words in the pasuk, we see an association with Shem Elokim. So he says, this examination is also in the beginning of the pasuk. Vayita Eshel Be'er Shava, that he planted an Eshel in Be'er Shava. Be'er Shava is a physical location, but also it signifies the number 7 in Chassidus. The number 7 indicates the 7 character traits, emotions. Next week's parsha, and the many mamorim on the pasuk, and it was the life of Sarah, 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years. The 7 indicates the 7 emotional attributes, the 7 character traits. The same thing where it says Be'er Shava, the well of 7, it's referring to the 7 midos. The 7 character traits, these are the 7 days of building, that with them the world was created, meaning the 7 midas that are responsible for the creation of the world. So again, we see this connection with the creation. And the creation is not with Shem Havaya Del Fizi, if so, it's even more a wonder. Or it's a great wonder. Why does he conclude with the name Yud Kei Vav Kei Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya Davka, that he called out specifically with the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, V'loi B'Shem Elokim Shaboy Nivra Olam, and not with the name Elokim, that with that the world was created. So the the Rebbe continues the explanation, the answer for this, bottom of the page, but the idea behind this is, like it's understood from the continuation of the Maimer, the Mashakosov Khan, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya, that he called out over there in the name of Yud Ki Vavkei, Kol Yal B'Chinas Havaya de Lasata Mislabish B'Shem Elakim. It's referring to the lower level of Yud Kei Vavkei that's enclosed in the name Elakim. We know that there are two levels in Havaya. That's why a lot of times in the Torah we see that the name Havaya is repeated. Why is it repeated? For example, in the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim that we say every morning when we say Tachna. So that's a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Parshas Kisisa. It says Havaya Havaya Hashem Hashem Kel Racham B'Chaman. Why do we repeat it twice? What's this repetition? The reason for this repetition is because unlike the other names of Hashem, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei has two levels. The level of the lower Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the lower level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, does relate to the world, but even that, it will relate to the world through becoming enclosed in Shem Elokim. Even the lower level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei on its own cannot relate to the world. It needs to go through the filter of Shem Elokim. And then there's a higher level of Shem Havaya de La'elam, that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlos. That is not what we're talking about over here. So where it's over here where it says that he made them call out in the name of Havaya, it's talking about the lower level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei that does relate to the world via becoming enclosed in Shem Elokim. And the Chidush shall Avram, and by the way, that's why it actually says in creation, at the end of creation, B'yoim asois havai Elokim eretz v'shamayim. Even though the beginning of creation says, Bereshis bar Elokim, Vayomer Elokim yehi oyer, Vayomer Elokim yehi rakia, and it says 32 times the Shem Elokim in the creation. Still in all, at the end of creation, he says, B'yoim asois havai Elokim eretz v'shamayim, because in the Shem Elokim, Shem Havaya is enclosed. The way it comes up from this Maimer, the level of Havaya de Lasata, the lower level of Havaya. The Chidush shall Avram Hoya Vayikra Sham B'Shem Havaya Keil Oilam V'Loi Keil HaOilam. It says that Avram Avinu called out in the name of Havaya, God world, not God of the world. Why is it not say God of the world? Because if you would say God of the world, you might think there's world and there's Hashem. But the point over here is that Avram Avinu didn't just inform and teach and make others know that there is Havaya, that there is Hashem, but it's somewhere out there. No. But Avram Avinu informed his guests that the world and godliness are not two separate and distinct things. Ella, Shapal Yichud Havaya del Sata, what he did is he affected the union and the mating and joining of the lower Shem Havaya, Hamislabish B'Shem Elokim Livros Oilam, that's enclosed in the name Elokim to create the world, Imha Oilam, with the world. The way the Rebbe adds the nuance over here is that Avram Avinu didn't just inform them of the union of Havaya with the world, of the union of the lower Shem Havaya with the world, but not only did he inform them, but he also brought this about. In other words, the world left to its own devices is something that's separated from Shem Havaya. By Avram Avinu doing his avodah, he actually manifested and brought about that Havaya and the world should not be separated and be called Keil HaOilam, but it's actually Keil Oilam, it's actually totally one with the world, it's not two separate things. And that which he manifested, he also shared with his guests. So that's why it uses the Shem Havaya to tell us that that's how powerful Avram Avinu's avodah was, to bring down Shem Havaya de Lasata, the way it's enclosed in Shem Elokim, into the world and informed that of his guests as well. And that was thanks to Vayita Eshel through the Avodah of Achnosas Orchim, through the hospitality. Top of the second page is the Maimon. It's known that the actions of the forefathers are a sign for their children. The Ramban says that the events that occurred with let's say, with the forefathers, for example, he goes into, I believe, mentioning different examples. Let's say the interaction between Yaakov and Esau would be a forerunner of what was going on with the Jewish people and the nations of the world, or with Rome specifically, and so on and so forth. Many different activities and happenings that took place with the others are indicators of things that would take place later on. But the Rebbe has an interesting diuk, an analysis of the word simon. What is a sign? A sign is not the thing itself. It's only indicates something. So when I have a sign that tells me that this is such and such a street, the sign is not the street. Or a sign that tells me that this town is coming up, the sign is not the town. It's only an indicator of the town. Which means, what is more important? The town, not the sign. The sign is something essentially inconsequential in comparison to what it is indicating. So the same thing the Rebbe is going to apply over here to the saying that Maise of Simon Labonim, being a sign, being an indicator, means that it's incomparable to what the children will do. V'hainu, the second half of the first line, that the matter, the way it was by the forefathers, was only a sign. And from this afterwards it occurs by the children the idea in its completion and perfection, binyan shalom, a complete building, the entire thing, not just a sign that there's going to be a building over here, but the actual building. For example, Avraham Avinu getting the bris milah was like a sign and an indication of the union of the physical and the spiritual that will take place on Matan Torah. But the Rebbe in many sikhs points out that as great as the mitzvah of bris milah of Avram was, that he received it directly from the Eibishter, and that's why he didn't do it on his own, because he was waiting for Hashem to tell him to do it, because then it would have the quality of a mitzvah, that a mitzvah joins the spiritual and the physical. Even after all of that, it's still not on the same level like mitzvahs after Matan Torah, when after Matan Torah the decree that the Elyonim lo yedu l'tachtoinim, that those above should not descend below and those below should not ascend above, was nullified. So the milah that we do now is of a different quality and level even than Avram's milah that he got as a command from Hashem. Still in all, it's only a simon. This connects also with what the Rambam says. The Rambam says that we do the bris milah these days or other mitzvahs not because the Avos did it. We don't not eat the Gid Anosha because Yaakov Avinu. We don't do the bris milah because of Avraham Avinu. We do it because Moshe Rabbeinu commanded us on Har Sinai. The inner meaning behind it is because as great as Avraham Avinu's mitzvah of milah was, it doesn't come to what we do after the bittul agzeira, after the decree was nullified, that the above should not come down below and vice versa. Therefore, over here, what we're talking about over here in our mimer, it's also something that is considered only a simon for what will take place later on. So too, it's in this matter, the Eitz Avram is a rakbay from the simon. By Avram Avinu, it was only in a way of a sign. This idea of Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Keil Olam that he called out that should be Keil and Olam together, it was still only in a way of a sign. Again, usually we talk about Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, what they did was amazing, and halavai, I should be able to reach to what they're doing. The Rebbe's focus is always on us, that what we do, nothing is like what we do. How is it a sign? Because all Avram could reach was only the lower level of Shem Havaya. The level of Havaya that has to do with Seder Ishtalshnus. But through the avoida of the children. Our actions and our service, Poyolim Yisayim is that we affect even more than this. That this calling out the name of Havaya, that Keil Olam, is not the Havaya of the lower Shem Havaya, and not the Havaya that has to do with Seder Ishtalshlus, but rather it brings down the level of Havaya de La'ela, the higher Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the Rebbe says in a very practical sense, because what is our actions and service leading to? It's leading to Mashiach's times. The revelation of Mashiach's times is not the lower level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's the higher level. Just saying no through our actions and service, that we bring about the future redemption. Then godliness will be revealed in the world. Like it says, that the glory of Hashem will be revealed, and all flesh will see together. That the flesh itself will see the glory of Yud Kei Vav Kei. In other words, it's similar to what we said before about Keil and Olam together. Not Keil ha-Olam, godliness and the world are separate. When we say the flesh itself will see the glory of Hashem, not human beings that are made of flesh, but the physical flesh will perceive Hashem. That's the total unity of Keil and Olam. This is also the upper level of Shem Havayim, until it becomes a revelation of a level called that there's nothing besides the Eibishter. That's what will become revealed in the world, that we will see how there's nothing beside him. Well, the Mailam is ein oid, and even higher, that there's nothing else. I'd like to explain the different places, the idea behind it, that there's Mamorim that speak about ein oid malvade, means besides him there's nothing, but with him we are a something. Ein oid means even with him, ein oid, there's nothing else. There's no, oid means something that is tafel, something that is secondary, ancillary, auxiliary. There is nothing else. Even with him, there is only him. And so this was the revelation that's going to be because of Shem Havaya de Leila, because Shem Havaya de Lasata relates to the world and therefore makes the world be considered a Metzias. And all of this, the revelation of Havaya de Leila, that's going to take place when Mashiach comes, will be in a way that's beyond measure and boundary. Harchava Amit is true broadness. True broadness is when there's no limit on the broadness. If broadness has breadth, has a limitation, so it's not true broadness because there's an end to it. Like it says that Yerushalayim, which up till now is a walled city, will be an open city, meaning the fact that it has no gates around it means that it's completely, it can go in every direction with no limitation. And that's what it says also, that when Hashem will broaden your boundaries, it says concerning Arim Miklat, and we know it's not if, but it's when. That when Mashiach comes will be the time that Hashem broadens our boundaries. And the way He will broaden the boundaries is it will be a broadness that there's nothing greater than it. In other words, there's no limit, like we said, to how much He will expand Eretz Yisrael and how much He will expand Yerushalayim. And so too it will be in Torah. That the revelation will be even higher than what it says about Torah. It says its measure is longer than the earth and it's broader than the sea. So that is Torah the way it's now. When Mashiach comes, it'll be a greater thing than this. Why? Because when we say it's longer than earth, its measure, and it's broader than the sea, so then we are limiting it or defining its size in relation to these limited things. present time, the length and the breadth of the Torah is comparable to the earth and to the sea, and we're saying, but it's greater. It's longer than the earth, it's broader than the sea, but it still relates to it. Or else you can't say, if two things don't relate, you can't say that this is greater than that. You can't say that a big chacham is smarter than a rock. There's no relationship. A rock has no connection with intellect. When Mashiach comes, there will be the revelation of Torah from a very high level. Because all will know me, actually me, Hashem's very essence. That we will know Hashem Himself. And that essence of Hashem that can become revealed when Mashiach comes, that itself will become revealed in Torah. It says that, like it says, when you take the Torah, when you understand the Torah, you are taking me. The Rebbe concludes with a bracha, v'yiratzon should be the will of Hashem, shaydei adibur b'chol and yanam elu, through speaking about all these matters, navi l'kim kol davar poel, we shall come to the actualization of this actually happening. Okay, move on Maimer Shom, like it's brought down, that Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Magid Vorov Yaakov Chokov Mishpat Yisrael, that he tells his words to Yaakov and his laws and statutes, and he tells the Yidden Mashu Oisoim Yisrael Diasis. What he does, he tells the Yidden to do, and therefore, what we do and what Hashem does reflects each other. Should take from Mayad Mam Shekoyim in Yuzet Chiyarkov Ailkach Gevulcha, that immediately will become fulfilled this matter that Hashem will broaden your boundaries. Shetier Shiva Amin, there'll be the land of the 7 nations, and even more so of Eretz Eser Amin, there'll be the land of the 10 nations of Keni Knizi V'Kadmoini that only come when Mashiach comes. V'Cheni Yagam B'Yisrael B'Torah. That so too will be this broadness of our boundaries, both in the Yidden and in the Torah. Shetia Shleimus HaMishaleshes, there'll be the tripled perfection. Shleimus HaTorah v'Am Yisrael v'Eretz Yisrael, the perfection and completion of Torah and the nation of Yidden and the land of Yisrael. V'atam Tuluktu Lechad Echad B'nei Yisrael, and you will be collected one by one, the B'nei Yisrael. Kol Yisrael Shemesh Kol Doiris, including all the Yidden throughout all the generations. Like it says, that those that are resting in the earth will awaken and sing. The Hainu Kol Yisrael Shemeshach Kol Doiris, all the Yidden throughout all the generations. When the Sidar Einu B'Soicham, and the leader of our generation, in other words, the Frierdiker Rebbe, amongst them, B'Baroshim at their head, B'Kaspam Azhavim Itam, their silver and gold with them. Hein Beruchni is both spiritual silver and gold. Avas Havaya, Yiras Havaya, we know that love of Hashem is likened to silver from the word kesef, from the word kisufim, yearning and thirst and desire for Hashem. And the awe of Hashem is the idea of gold. Also literally in the physical will have silver and gold. And in addition to this, and that's primary, all this should be below 10 handbreadths in our physical world. And additionally to this, and this is primary, she has a take from Yad Mamish, it should be immediately Mamish.